Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Community Church of Chesterland. We are really looking forward to today's shared service. My name is Megan Carver. I am Community Church of Chesterland's moderator. I'm very excited to welcome you all here today. Every week, we like to start off our services by saying that wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome, wanted, and loved here at Community Church. So thank you for being here.
We come to this time and this place to renew our faith in holiness, goodness, and beauty of life. To rekindle the flame of memory and hope and
So our children's moment today, which is also really for grown-ups too, so kids are welcome to listen, but that, bless your hearts, it's for everybody. We're celebrating Black History Month. As we mentioned earlier, it's an act of resistance for us, and we'll talk a little bit more about that since it has been taken away from federal workers and other folks. So as part of Black History, we are celebrating some of the people who have made such an incredible difference in our world. I have a picture book today about Shirley Chisholm, who many of you will remember in her incredible career, first Black Congresswoman, first Black woman to run for president. The picture book is a little longer than usual, so I'm going to cheat and skip pages, which, as a librarian, let me tell you, you cannot get away with that in story time. The kids always know. If you have tried to skip at bedtime, right? Oh yeah, they are on you just like that. So I am trusting that you'll be more forgiving and let me skip some pages today. So this book, which is awesome, is called Shirley Chisholm is a Verb, and it is written by Veronica Chambers. Shirley was a dedicated student at her high school in Brooklyn, and she was vice president of the Honor Society. She graduated with a Medal of Excellence in French. She earned scholarships to both Vassar and Oberlin, but her parents could not afford the room and board, and so she went to Brooklyn College. In college, Shirley decided to pursue a career in education. She became a nursery school teacher and then earned her master's degree. Shirley wanted to help even more people. She believed that service is the rent that you pay for your room on earth. She decided to go into politics. She ran for and won a seat on the New York State Assembly. Then Shirley ran for the United States Congress, the part of the government that makes decisions for people all over the country. It was a race few thought she would win, but Shirley believed if your heart told you it was the right thing to do, you should always listen. She knew she could only fail if she didn't try. She campaigned, meaning that she encouraged people to vote for her. Her slogan was, "Unbought and unbossed." Isn't that awesome? Meaning she would not take any kind of special interest money and therefore wouldn't have to answer to anyone when she got elected. The people of Brooklyn chose Shirley to represent them. She became the first black woman ever elected to Congress. She traveled to Washington, D.C. There wasn't a single person who looked like her. It was a lonely time. Being the first often is. But Shirley Chisholm wouldn't give up. She thought of all the people back in Brooklyn who had voted for her. She felt forever linked to them. Shirley's first assignment in Congress was the House Agricultural Committee, a group of people who oversee the farmlands of America. Shirley was disappointed. She came from a big city. How would working with farms help the people in Brooklyn vote for her? Shirley helped initiate a program called WIC, which assists women, infants, and children in need of food. She also helped create Head Start to make sure that little kids had a good start learning to read. WIC and Head Start. I had remembered about Head Start, I did not know about WIC. Because of her hard work, she eventually earned positions on committee after committee. She was so unafraid that in 1972, after 4 years in Congress, she decided to run for president. Before a large group of people, she announced, "I stand before you today as the candidate for the presidency of the United States." She was the first black person and the first woman to make a serious bid for the presidency. She said, "I am not the candidate for Black America, although I am black and proud. I am not the candidate of the women's movement of this country, although I am a woman and equally proud of that. I am the candidate for the people of America." People had called Shirley Chisholm many things before, but now they said she was black, beautiful, brave, brainy, bright, and believable. Some of the other candidates were angry that Shirley was taking votes away from them, but Shirley knew how to hold her ground. She said, "Excuse me, I have a right to be here. Pay attention, I've got something to say. Listen, I've got a job to do, and I intend to do it." When people tried to silence her, Shirley spoke louder. When the media ignored her, Shirley protested. When other politicians tried to bully her, Shirley stood stronger. When her opponents said hurtful things, Shirley smiled wider. Then Shirley heard that the Democrats had decided she would not be their presidential candidate. She was disappointed, but not discouraged. Shirley realized that just because she didn't win, it didn't mean that she had lost. Some races are relays. We only need to run as far and fast as we can. Shirley's verbs, her words, and her actions planted the seed of possibility for others. 12 years later, Geraldine Ferraro would crack the ceiling further when she gained the Democratic nomination for vice president. 25 years later after that, President Barack Obama would ascend all the way to the White House. 7 years later, Hillary Rodham Clinton would put 18 million more cracks in that ceiling when the Democrats nominated her for president. And then in 2018, a record-breaking 131 women were elected to Congress. It is a number that would have made Shirley beam. Part of the congressional class of 2018 was a young woman named Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Like Shirley, she was also known as the Congresswoman from New York. Like Shirley, Alexandria did things her way, and she prioritized the people who had elected her and put their concerns first. Shirley Chisholm inspired her. On her first day in Congress, Alexandria said, "From suffragettes to Shirley Chisholm, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the mothers of the movement." In 2015, President Barack Obama awarded Chisholm the Medal of Freedom. Shirley's great-nephew accepted it. Speaking of her service to the nation and how tireless she was in her quest, President Obama said, "There are people in our country's history who don't look left or right, they look straight ahead." Shirley Chisholm was one of those people. Thank you. And now we will have our social justice moment.
Good morning again, friends. I'm Jenny Wilson again with the social justice team here at CCC. So a little over a year ago, we decided to introduce a weekly social justice moment into the service. The premise was that we would speak for a couple of minutes and highlight any social justice topic that might educate, illuminate, motivate. We have had an incredible response, and topics we've shared have included voting rights, neurodivergence, disability inequities, indigenous people, gun violence, LGBTQI+ rights, book banning, hope, environmental justice, food dyes, personal social justice journeys, and on and on. This month marks the observation of Black History Month we've been talking about, regardless of the abolition of DEI. So I offer a quote that's been helping me focus this month and has really struck a chord with me. And this is Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. "There comes a time when silence is betrayal." So myself, I have always been interested in history, and Wendy has repeatedly been highlighting all of these very important African American social and religious leaders. I have recognized my incredible ignorance about these singular facilitators of compassion, justice, and love. So, this month, I have been educating myself on their bravery and their actions that have led to this moment in history. People like Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Thurgood Marshall, Rosa Parks, Ruby Bridges, John Lewis, Harriet Tubman, Emmett Till, and the list continues. When my sister lived in Birmingham, Alabama, we visited the Civil Rights Institute and the 16th Street Baptist Church. The memories I have are moving and grim. The horror of the Birmingham Four, which were the 4 little girls that were killed by the bomb by the Ku Klux Klan right before their church service, and the Barriers exhibit, which displayed the quality of life for those living in segregation, mandating people of color to eat, drink, ride, worship, marry, and even urinate in separate facilities. Wendy prompted us to view the movie Selma, which is the dramatization of Dr. King's historic march from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama, and that was to demand Black citizens to be allowed to register to vote unencumbered. So we watched. One of the revelations for me during this movie was the incredible sacrifices that this man made, putting at risk his family, his friends, thousands of supporters, and of course himself, repeatedly and unknowingly of the outcome. This toll astounded me, and the sacrifices continued for so many that died for this cause. I just finished reading Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead, a novelization that is based on a now closed Florida reform school for boys that was notorious for its abusive physical and sexual mistreatment of Black students. It is a staggering tale of repression, trauma, resilience, and dignity. Black History Month is that continued engagement with history, vital, as it helps give context for the present. It is a chance to celebrate Black achievement, to remind us to take stock of where systemic racism persists, and to give visibility to those people and organizations that are creating change. We continue to see unprecedented and catastrophic changes by the current administration. So, again, we want to feel empowered and intentional in what we are doing. So, the social justice team is going to be launching what we call a weekly action challenge. So this week, I challenge you to take an action. Watch Selma. It's free from your library, streaming on Canopy. Listen to the podcast, The Agitators. It is a fantastic examination of the complex relationship between Frederick Douglass and Susan B. Anthony and voting rights. There you go. Read any book by Colson Whitehead, any book. Read poetry by Amanda Gorman, or the new biography, which we have at home thanks to Wendy, King, A Life by Jonathan Eeg. Engage and educate. To conclude, I have another beautiful quote from Dr. King. Faith is taking the first step, even when you cannot see the whole staircase.
If you would like to contribute a financial show of support for the work and life of this beloved community, you can scan the QR code that's in your bulletin. You can go to chesterlanducc.org and click on Donate, or you can send a check to 11984 Caves Road, 44026. No matter in what way you lend your support to this community, please know your donations will be most gratefully received.
Praise to the source of all we know, for peace and love that freely flow. Praise to the wisdom deep and wise, whose truth and justice open eyes.
A reading from the Gospel of Luke. Be compassionate as your loving God is compassionate. Don't judge, and you won't be judged. Don't condemn, and you won't be condemned. Pardon, and you'll be pardoned. Give, and it will be given to you. Full measure, packed down, shaken through, running over, and poured into your lap. For the amount you measure out is the amount you'll be given back. Our modern reading is the words from Ralph Waldo Emerson. A person will worship something. Have no doubt about that. We may think our tribute is paid in secret in the darkness recesses of our heart, but it will out. That which dominates our imagination and our thoughts will determine our lives and character. Therefore, it behooves us to be careful what we worship. For what we are worshiping, we are becoming.
This week's reading comes from a passage in the Gospel of Luke that begins with Jesus saying, "To you who hear me, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you." And of course, as Jenny mentioned, MLK, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. preached this message over and over. But if you're like me, love your enemies feels like a pretty heavy lift. One of my friends used to say, that's a heavy lift. And that feels like a pretty heavy lift right now. Our enemies are not just people who disagree with us politely over the dinner table. They're not even that rude uncle we try to avoid at Christmas. No, the enemies are actively seeking to harm, really harm, the most vulnerable among us. Of course, Jesus was up against the Roman Empire. Talk about harming the vulnerable. And Dr. King was up against racism in America. Talk about harming the vulnerable. I don't know about you, but I don't have the moral fortitude of a Dr. King, and I certainly don't have the beneficence of Jesus. I am definitely falling short there. When I see corrupt and evil leaders and the people who support them, I will confess to feeling much more Old Testament than New about my enemies. But the passage in Luke continues with the very famous line, "Do to others what you would have them do to you." If I were rounded up by ICE, I would hope my neighbors would gather in protest. If I were an LGBTQIA plus child harmed by legislation, I would hope that others would protest and ultimately vote the haters out. Love your enemies might be a stretch, but do unto others for the people in this room and it's the do in that sentence, do unto others, that gives people in liberal faith traditions like ours a foothold. Taking action is what we do. Unitarian theologian Ralph Waldo Emerson had a similar quandary. Most of his work was written in the 1840s, about 20 years before the beginning of the Civil War, but at the height of anti-slavery and abolitionism. Love your enemies, Emerson wrote in his essay on self-reliance, was impossible. What if, he said, I were asked to be polite to an angry bigot talking about abolition when he was fresh from his plantation in Barbados? Emerson, a man universally recognized for his tact and his graciousness, refutes loving that enemy. He writes, the doctrine of hatred must be preached as the counter-reaction to the doctrine of love. I was like, mic drop, Ralph Waldo, whoa. The hatred for slavery is more powerful, more urgent, and such a prime example of do unto others that for Emerson, loving that particular enemy is less important than speaking and acting against the hatefulness of slavery. Emerson's essay on self-reliance is really an essay on how to maintain our integrity. The self-reliance that he is urging all of us to adopt is really to rely on our own values and our own judgment, no matter how far out of step they may be with the dominant society's values or the dominant society's laws. Emerson lived at a time when they had a law that returned escaped slaves back to the South, and he was very active in that movement. He writes in the gendered language of his day, to be a man is to be a nonconformist. Trust your emotion, Emerson continues, for God is within. There's the Unitarian theologian emerging in his argument. If God is here within, and if that is universal, which Emerson and the other anti-slavery traditions believed, then to enslave someone was to enslave the essence of God, and that was the great. Emerson wanted to lift people up, see the truth, that with greater self-reliance came, as he described it, a new respect for the divinity in man. For Emerson, it was all about self-reliance. For Shirley Chisholm, it was all about self-determination. I was 12 when Shirley Chisholm ran for president. I remember it very clearly. My heroes as a kid were women like Shirley Chisholm and Gloria Steinem, pretty much any woman behind a microphone or marching through the street of the ERA. Women who were over it and thought you should be over it too. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, as we heard in our picture book this morning, was inspired by Chisholm too, although AOC wasn't born until 1989. AOC refused to play with special interest groups. That kind of integrity was exactly how Shirley Chisholm rolled. Shirley Chisholm used to say, as we heard, that she was unbought and unbossed. In other words, unlike the Silicon Valley crowd that now dog the footsteps of Donald John Trump, there was no quid pro quo to get Chisholm elected, and there would be no favors once she was in office. Chisholm's integrity carried to her work in Congress. She went to represent, as one writer described it, those who are most marginalized and disenfranchised in society, because she believed that by the most marginalized and disenfranchised should be centered, and everyone's standard of living would improve. Do to others what you would have them do to you. Head Start. Head Start is one of the vulnerable agencies waiting to see what happens with frozen federal funding. One of my friend's husbands is an accountant for Head Start in Cuyahoga County. And he is, of course, looking for another job because their funding is very questionable at this point. He loves that job. For an accountant, to find meaningful social justice work was a really big deal for him, right? And now he's looking to see what's next. Because Shirley Chisholm's legacy and the generations of children she's helped by creating Head Start are very much in jeopardy. WIC was originally created by Chisholm in response to the infant mortality rate that was terrible among women and children in poverty in 1972. WIC brought generations of children and mothers the nutrition and the hope they needed. It saved generations of lives. 11 days ago, the National WIC Association issued this policy statement. It reads, WIC, SNAP, and Medicaid work together to ensure that families have the nutrition and health care they need to thrive, said Georgia Matchell, President and CEO of the National WIC Association. If Congress moves forward with the cuts to Medicaid or SNAP, families will not only lose access to food and health care, they'll face unnecessary barriers to WIC. This will leave pregnant women, infants, and young children without essential support that keeps them healthy at a time when families are already struggling with food insecurity. Lawmakers must recognize how these programs are interconnected and protect access to them. Her biographer describes Shirley Chisholm as a national symbol of principled fearlessness. The title of our message this morning is Integrity as Bright as Noonday, and it comes from this week's psalm, Psalm 37. I think Psalm 37 would have resonated with Shirley Chisholm. I like to think that she would have recognized herself in it. It reads in part, commit your way to God and trust in God. God will take action, making your vindication as sure as the dawn and your integrity as bright as noonday. Be still before God and wait patiently. Don't fret about those who amass great fortunes and carry out their schemes unchallenged. Can't make this stuff up. Let go of your anger and leave your resentment behind. Or don't. Don't let go of your anger. Instead, harness it and do to others as you would have them do to you. Therein lies our integrity. The passage from Luke concludes with the ancient reading we heard this morning. Be compassionate as your loving God is compassionate. Don't judge and you won't be judged. Don't condemn and you won't be condemned. Pardon and you'll be pardoned. Give, and it will be given to you, a full measure, packed down, shaken together, and running over, will be poured into your lap. For the amount you measure out is the amount you're given back. That is where the lesson is for us. In the times in which we find ourselves, as we give, whether we donate to the ACLU or give to a campaign we believe in, or whether we feed the hungry in downtown Cleveland, or whether we stand up and speak out when hateful rhetoric that we hear on the news and social media get repeated at work or at family gatherings, that action, that do unto others, that self-reliance that Emerson found, and that self-determination that Chisholm walked with, is the integrity that will be given to you, a full measure, packed down, shaken together, and running over. For the amount of integrity you measure out is the amount of integrity you're given back. May it be so. Here at Community Church of Chesterland, and we're inviting all our pals to play along, we're celebrating Black History Month as one of our acts of resistance in response to executive orders banning it from agencies and in resistance to the use of DEI as a new target for a racist administration. Here are some suggestions, adding on to Jenny's list today, to celebrate and to honor the memory and legacy of Shirley Chisholm. First and foremost, Look at the calls thing that Jenny recommended. I didn't know she was going to say that this morning, but it's perfect. Email or get on your phone and call your legislators about WIC and about Head Start. These programs are what lies between these children and the very worst effects of poverty. I grew up in a very poor corner of southern Medina County and saw it all the time, and as a librarian, we see these vulnerable kids and families every day. These legislators may not care about those children, but it's not about them. It's about the children, and it's about your integrity. Honor Chisholm's incredible contributions by burning up those phone lines and stuffing those email inboxes. And I've said it before, the calls and emails really do count. My brother used to work for the Democratic National Committee. It's a thing. It really does matter. Also, you can honor Chisholm by reading more about her. There's a recent biography entitled Shirley Chisholm, Champion of Black Feminist Politics by Anastasia C. Kerwood, available at your local library. And there is both a documentary and a biopic about her. The documentary is called Chisholm 72, Unbought and Unbossed. Let me read the description. This historical documentary on Brooklyn Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm and her campaign for the Democratic Party presidential nomination in '72 reflects Chisholm's wit, spirit, and humor as the film chronicles her adventures on, they called it the Chisholm Trail while she was running. It's on Amazon Prime. It's also free from your local library on Canopy. And the full-length movie, there was a Regina King, the actress, and her sister did a full-length movie that was in theaters about a year ago, and it is now available on Netflix. I am not a Netflix person, but if you are, you can watch it and celebrate for the rest of us. I hope you do treat yourself to a little more time with Ms. Chisholm in honor of Black History Month, and I hope you will join me in steadfastly and faithfully celebrating the diversity and vibrancy of this incredible country until such time as that diversity and vibrancy is once again recognized by our country's leaders. Community Church of Chesterland and East Shore Unitarian Universalists and Zoomers, thank you for joining us this morning. Blessed be, and amen.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin Let this be my moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
Amen. For those of you who don't quite have many miles on you as I do, you may not have made the connection there that song would have been huge in 1972 when Shirley Chisholm was running. When I was a kid, we sang that in the all-county chorus. Damn, boy, I'm just telling you, you were something else. He's incredible. Reads the vibe and then does the thing. Thank you so much, Tyler. That was incredible. Got me all choked up hearing that song again. Our benediction this morning is by Theodore Parker. He was a contemporary of Emerson's. They fought in the same circles. Be ours a religion which like sunshine goes everywhere. Its temple, all space. Its shrine, the good heart. Its creed, all truth. Its ritual, word of love. Its profession of faith, divine living. Blessed be.
Lead us from death to life, from falsehood to truth, from despair to hope, from fear to trust. Lead us from hate to love, from war to peace. Let peace fill our hearts. Let peace fill our world. Let peace fill our universe. Still all the angry cries, still all the angry guns, still now our people die, earth's sons and daughters. Let justice roll, let mercy pour down. Come and teach us your way of compassion. Lead us from death to life, from falsehood to truth, from despair to hope, from fear to trust. Lead us from hate to love, from war to peace. Let peace fill our hearts. Let peace fill our world. Let peace fill our universe. So many lonely hearts, so many broken lives, longing for love to break into their anguish. Come teach us love. Come teach us